Yeah. All right, we are live tonight here with Peter Cush. I don't care if I never get back either. I don't know if I'm talking about baseball or work. Hey, we have three strikes you're out. Mistake at Kelly Square. So, hey, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Broadcasting live here from Cities and Suburbs in Charlton, Massachusetts. Welcome aboard to the sports edition. Kenny B here live with the and the umpire of basketball and baseball and other sports, Peter K. We're going to cover a couple of things tonight, all things baseball. So if you think, if you're already asleep because we mentioned baseball, then maybe this isn't the show for you. But anyway, welcome aboard here. It is on 8/9/2021. The Bravehearts finished their season. The Collegiate League finishes their season on the 13th over at Fitton Field. A lot of fun to go see them. So we have Peter on the line. We don't want to keep him because he is driving hands-free, right?
Hands-free, 190, baby. On my way out the air.
Oh, right. Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. And you don't have a cold one open, right?
No. Right. I have a delicious coffee from Dippin' Donuts.
Ooh.
If you say Peter sent you, maybe he'll give me a free coffee one of these days.
Oh, well, how do you like that? Well, how's this? I have a cold one open for both of us.
Put a shot, and now we're talking.
Oh, there you go. So, have you heard of, real quick, have you heard of the Field of Dreams?
I have. It looks interesting. I know they were trying to get it going. It was supposed to be last year, I think, but I think COVID kind of put the kibosh on that. But the field looks beautiful. The uniforms look great. I'm not a big fan of that stupid Nike swoosh. I think that's ruined baseball jerseys this year because they changed over the manufacturer of the jersey. So now all the uniforms have Nike logos on the front, and I think it's kind of sacrilegious. But aside from that, it looks like it's going to be a great event.
Yeah, you know something? I did not notice that. Yeah, I mean, you know, where are you without? Where is any sports franchise without advertisement? You're just dead in the water without it. But yeah, they're gonna be playing the. I don't know. You know, David Reed. It looks like he's going to be managing the White Sox.
I didn't see that.
Oh, okay. I mean, not, but it's a Field of Dreams. I'm watching Yahoo, but I guess I only say that because tonight's topic, guys, is really about, you know, people these days, especially the younger generation, getting people to like baseball again and understand baseball. Everything is so fast. We have the internet age and, you know, right? I mean, everything's so quick. And then I looked at the Field of Dreams thing as a way to engage maybe new customers to baseball because baseball's dying. I mean, right? I mean, it needs new fans. So I'm a purist. I like the way the game is played. I will say I'll set this up. There's an argument that the game is too slow. It should be 7 innings and put a runner on second, as they did last year, to speed the games up. Double headers this year, only 7 innings, and maybe baseball games should only be 7 innings, like softball games. I'm a purist. I like the action in a baseball game, and I believe there's a strategy on every pitch. There should be, not the way they're pitching this year. And then there's the new people, or maybe some old school people who feel like, you know, 9 innings is too long, and how do we speed the game up? And back in the day, they're all matinee games. Before there were lights in the stadiums, and before we had righty-lefty matchups and all that crap, games were probably about 2.5 hours long. I will say, though, how can you take a football game that's 60 minutes and turn it into 4 hours? And I will just say this. there are 90% of your baseball games do not last as long as an NFL football game, but we'll sit there and watch the game, right? At least in New England, because it was exciting until last year. But how can you turn 60 minutes into 4 hours, right? So,
Yep.
What are your thoughts? I mean, Peter, do you think that baseball's too long? Well, what needs to change with Major League Baseball to draw fans and to make it, I don't know, more interesting? The whole thing with the shift, righty-lefty matchups. You can only bring a lefty pitcher in if he's going to pitch to 3 batters. I mean, you're doing this for a profession, not me. So, what do you think?
I mean, you and I are kind of in the same camp as far as purists for the game goes. I mean, I really still do believe that a baseball diamond in and of itself is just one of the most beautiful things to see.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a sign of spring. It's a sign of a new beginning, and it's just all the fields are different. They're not all symmetrical, but everything else, the diamonds are all the same. But there's something that's just inherently beautiful about a baseball game and a baseball diamond.
Right.
I mean, the fact that you know, you always are in a game, no matter how out of hand it gets. But I think that, you know, you talked about football, and the reality is, you know, why is football so much more popular when in reality there's less action in a football game?
Mm-hmm.
You run a play and then you stand around for 30 seconds.
Right. Exactly.
And then honestly, the last 2 minutes of the game, or even the last 4 minutes of the game, could just be one team just trying to milk the clock and run the game out.
Right. Yep.
So when you look at it, it's just, you know, in football, it just go from nothing to running around with your like a chicken with head cut off to just nothing again. Whereas baseball is kind of like a constant, it's almost like a symphony. It's beautiful the way it's played. I think the problem the game has seen recently is just the strategy. And, you know, I think they've tried to make a few changes here or there. You're seeing it at the lower levels in the Atlantic League, which recently, I think 3 years ago, partnered up with Major League Baseball, and they've experimented with things like pushing the mound back a few inches, to robot umpires, to bigger bags. So they've tried all these different things to interject more action into the game. But honestly, I think the two things that are killing baseball right now are the shift,
Mm-hmm.
and just the time that games are going.
So the time, the length of the game, right?
Right.
So start with the shift for people out there who don't know what the shift is. You're talking baseball strategy to predict that this guy always hits the right field, correct?
Right.
All right. So explain it to a garden variety to our folks out there.
And basically, the shift is where you have a lefty batter up. You'll put you pull the second baseman and put the second baseman into the somewhere between right field and second base, and you shadow the second baseman over. And what that does is it takes away hits, because a line drive would normally go between the first baseman and the second baseman is now fielded by the second baseman, because the shortstop is now standing where the second baseman normally would be, and it creates more outs, and it doesn't allow for a single or a double or a triple, because the ball doesn't get through. So instead of being a line drive single or a line drive double, it's a ground out. It's a ground out. 4-3.
But it's a legal. It is a legal. It's a legal formation in baseball. It's not a forbidden strategy, right?
Right. There's only one rule in baseball as far as defensive alignments go, and that's that all defensive players, with the exception of the catcher, because the catcher, remember, is standing behind the plate. All defensive players except the catcher must be in fair territory.
Okay.
So that's the only rule right now on the books as far as where defensive players can sit.
So don't, in a football game, right, with each play, right, doesn't the defensive side of the ball in football, don't they shift up and switch to what the offense is going to do?
Well, they do, but the thing to remember about baseball is the only major American sport where the defense controls the ball.
That's true.
In every other sport, it's the offense that designs the play, and it's the defense's job to counter that play. In baseball, it's the defense who controls the ball, and it's up to the offense to hit the ball and run around the bases.
So when they do the shift, what I've noticed was, I use Big Papi for the Red Sox when he played. Okay, they always did the shift on him. The guy was not he was a slugger, and he hit I believe he was a lefty, right?
Yeah, he was a dead pull hitter.
He was a dead pull hitter, and he was never going to hit it to the opposite field off the wall for a double, right?
Right. Well, yeah.
Unless he got lucky, but either way, he was so in other words, a guy like that's known to hit it only one way, right?
Right.
They're never gonna, like Marty Barrett for the Red Sox back in the day, Wade Boggs, I like good hitters. I mean, dead ball, I get that, but I don't know. I have a problem. I sometimes like the shift because if you're a baseball player and you can't hit to all sides of the field, and see, that's the problem with baseball. The players are so specialized. I'm a home run hitter. I don't smack the ball. I'm a righty, so I don't, I don't hit the ball to, right field. If I'm a righty batter, I'm a dead pull hitter. I don't know. I'm kind of mixed with it. I guess what you're saying is it's very predictable when you get this guy that's a dead pull hitter, and he always hits it to the right side, right? Big Papi hits it to the right side, always hit into the shift, But why couldn't the guy learn how to pull it the other way?
Well, I will say my opinion on the shift has changed over the years. When the shift got really first started, I mean, baseball players have always shifted in one way or another throughout history. You'll see it all the time with outfielders shading maybe more towards left field or more towards right field, or you'll see the first baseman play the line. So there's always been shifts, but the extreme shifts. Now that analytics have become such a big part of baseball, the shifts seem more extreme than ever before. I mean, there are times when you have nobody on the left side of the field, the third base side of the field. You have nobody over there. So when the shift first really, when the modern, we'll call it the modern shift, when the modern shift really got big in the mid 2000s, mid to late 2000s, I was of the opinion that hit around it, drop a bunt down the third base line, and make the get on base. Mm-hmm. Because hey, if you drop a bunt down the third base line, if that gets by the pitcher, you have a hit. There's no way they're gonna get you out unless you hit it right at the pitcher. Which, trust me, I've seen a lot of bad bunts in my day. But these are professionals; these are major leaguers, so they can mostly lay down bunts. But the reality is, it's not a good product. And the baseball player, Willie Keeler, once famously said, hit it where they ain't.
Right.
When he was asked how to be a successful baseball player, well, hit it where they.
Right.
is the rest of the bleachers. So, now the balls over the shift and over the fence, and it's creating less action on the baseball. Everything is it's a determined end. It's either a strike, a ball, an out, or a home run.
Right.
And they're not, because they're learning in college and AAU and minor leagues and major leagues to have these uppercut swings. And you see it with like Chris Davis. And Chris Davis, you remember when he got that huge contract from Baltimore, which was now in hindsight a terrible contract, but he was ripping the cover off the ball, and then they started shifting him. And it's either boom or bust. He's either going to hit a 600-foot home run, or he's going to strike out on 3 pitches because he can't hit an off-speed pitch.
Right. Right.
And that's, I think, what's really hurting baseball as far as the shift goes, is the fact that there is no action. There's no single legging it out for a double, because singles are getting rarer and rarer. You'll get the single just all the time, but the key to look at is that home runs have doubled since the 1930s.
Mm-hmm.
Strikeouts have nearly tripled since the 1950s, and games are now over an hour and 15 minutes longer than they were in the 60s.
Yeah.
And there's a correlation between those, clearly. There has to be.
Right.
Players are taking more pitches. They're working counts. They're fouling balls off, and they're just swinging for the fences. And you're not seeing many 3-2, 2-1, 1-0 games. You're seeing the other part of that too is pitchers aren't pitching to contact anymore, because they don't want pitchers to pitch to contact. They want strikes or balls. They don't want to give the batter an opportunity to hit the ball. And as a Red Sox fan, you saw that with Barnes just a couple days ago and Springer.
Yeah.
I mean, who throws a pitch middle with the go-ahead run at the plate? Well, the reality is it's a risk. It's a risk factor. Throw the strike and get the out, or throw a ball. Springer puts one over the fence, and the Red Sox lose.
Right.
And that's kind of the problem, is to beat the shift instead of hitting the ball, bunting the ball down the third baseline. Baseball players have elected to change the game and just basically be a home run derby. And the home run derby was always fun, and I love the home run derby. But then I started shaving. It's like I used to love wrestling until you learn it's fake. The home run derby is cool, but the home run derby is once a year.
Yeah.
And it's the All-Star game. And then you realize like kind of how stupid it is in the end. I mean, nobody wants to pay to sit there for 4 hours and watch a home run derby.
Well, I'll tell you, let me tell you just some sarcastic commentary to that. Is the home run derby in the steroid era was between Sammy Sosa and Mark McGuire and what's the other guy from San Fran?
Barry Bonds.
Yeah, Barry. Was it Barry Bonds?
Barry Bonds.
Yeah. So that was the home run derby, on steroids. But anyway, I digress.
Literally.
But more prominent in the AL or the NL, because the NL, the pitcher bats, at least right now. I'd love to get rid of that crap, by the way. But is it more prominent in the National League or in the American League? What do you think?
Well, I mean, naturally, American League lineups are deeper because you do have the DH, and the DH is actually a funny story, because when the National League and the American League voted on the DH, in the American League it passed. In the National League, the Pittsburgh owner and the Philadelphia owner had an agreement that Pittsburgh would follow however Philadelphia voted, and Philadelphia voted to they didn't vote. They abstained, and so Pittsburgh abstained, which then led to the no DH in the National League. So the shift is you have the double switch in the National League, but the shifting is the same in both leagues, more or less. I'm assuming I don't have numbers in front of me, But the American League lineups are deeper because you do have, you do have that extra bat in the lineup. But you still see the shift even in the National League.
Yeah. So, well, that I just had to ask that question because what was that 1971 that the DH came in? Was it 1971? I think it was 1971.
I think around there, yeah.
Yeah, around 70, 71. Yeah. That really, and that's really the only difference between the NL and the AL anyway. We're all playing each other, which is time for another show, like the experiment that lasted forever with the AL and the NL. That's why I think they should just, get rid of the pitcher batting.
Well, that was George Bush's brainchild, by the way.
Was it really?
That was one of the big reasons why he was not named commissioner, is because he was in favor of interleague play and getting rid of the leagues, and just having one league. But
yeah, he was not actually. That's funny you say that. I just saw the. If you haven't seen it, you should check it out. The movie W, with Josh Brolin. Man, that guy. That guy's such a versatile actor.
Yep.
He was in this movie about the wildfire forest rangers called Only the Brave.
Yeah.
My God, the guy's amazing. But he did a really good job doing George W. Bush, and he basically mentioned, I think it was it Bud Selig at the time?
No, they picked Selig over
him.
Over Bush.
Yeah.
He was very close to becoming the next commissioner of baseball, which is one of those funny stories between that and if Fidel Castro had a stronger right arm, he would have been the catcher for the Washington Senators instead of having the communist takeover of Cuba.
That I've heard that story, but man, oh man, see, baseball is America, Peter, right? Baseball is America. We live and die by it, and I do have to comment on when you opened up talking about how the baseball fields and things like that, how beautiful they are. And they all have their own personality. And the NFL, you can build great stands and things like that, and it looks amazing. But when the camera angles on that sucker, it's just a square box. There's nothing sexy about a football field at all.
No.
But there's
and the thing is, like you just said, you see whenever I travel to all these places and take pictures. I mean, I go to hockey arenas, and some of them are great, but they're all basically the same. All the dimensions are the same. The seating's more or less the same. But baseball fields are like cathedrals. They hold history and they're hallowed grounds. And it's
very true.
It's incredible. I mean, even people look back. I mean, people look back fondly on the Polo Grounds, which wasn't really a great field, but it holds a place in our hearts and in American almost folklore at this point. Old Tiger Stadium, one of the most beautiful stadiums I've ever been to. But
I've been to. I went to the Mistake on the Lake. I got pictures of the old Cleveland Municipal Stadium.
Yeah.
And I got myself under Chief Wahoo with my Cleveland Indians hat, with a fake bat, and taking a swing. And that was 1989 when a friend of mine was moving out to Indiana, and we loaded up his 1984 Ford Escort, maybe whatever they made back then, and so we made sure we stopped at we stopped in Cleveland, visited that city, saw the stadium at the time. And it totally lived up to the movie, Major League. I mean, it was just really depressing. That that was a big stadium with just no asses in the seats.
Right.
So
well, Ken, the interesting thing is, like football. Whenever they build a new football stadium, they always get bigger and more ostentatious, and it's just big. With baseball, I mean, you remember Three Rivers Stadium in Pittsburgh.
Yep.
It was a big. I mean, that was a big stadium. The football it was a multi-field, so you could play baseball and football. The Steelers played there, but at the end of the day, the Pittsburgh Pirates decided when they built PNC Park to make it smaller
Right.
And that's something you would never see in the NFL or NHL or NBA because they're not meant to. Those sports, they want the big crowds. Because they don't care about the aesthetics overall. But Fenway Park, which I often said they should knock down and turn into a parking lot because it's a terrible stadium, terrible sight lines and those stupid girders. But the history there, old Yankee Stadium, was always fun to go to. Shea Stadium smelled like cat piss, but you know what? It had great memories to it.
Yeah, Shea Stadium was built for. Wasn't it built for the Olympics?
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, it's funny because the NFL stadiums are they can't be built with less than 50,000 people. They have to be built for, that's the league rule now. You have to have a 50,000 seat stadium. So if you get enough beers, people selling beer,
$12 beers.
Yep. And the one thing I will say about football, though, you can have a really suck team in football, and guys at least will still show up every Sunday and support the Lions, support the Cleveland Browns, whoever else is, the Arizona Cardinals, as opposed to baseball. When baseball's teams are really sucking bad, actually the Tampa, I will say that. I mean, of course, attendance dwindles, especially after the deadline. Like if you're the Chicago Cubs, my God, you traded half your team away. But if you think about that in comparison, but the Tampa Bay Rays are in first place. Last week they had 5,800 people, okay, at Tropicana Field. 5,800, and this is a team that's in first place. That's always been a knock on them, but it's a stadium that was built really quick and a really crappy way to get there. It's just too. But what I understand is they have a really strong television and radio audience. That's where their audience is. So,
Tropicana's got that great story where, speaking about Chicago, is they tried to steal the White Sox. The White Sox wanted to leave Chicago, and they pulled kind of the Kraft thing, like Kraft pulled to Hartford, where they were never going to move to Tampa Bay, but they thought they could get the team. They thought they had a realistic shot. So they built the stadium at an angle, the roof at an angle, because it was quicker, and to get it so they could try to get them for the next season.
And they saved money on air conditioning.
They did, and then what you ended up getting was they got rid of Comiskey, and they built all the time was U.S. Cellular Field.
Right.
I don't know how it's called now, but. They built a new ballpark, and Tampa Bay had to wait, I think it was another 3 or 4 years before they got the Devil Rays.
Right. So how can, what would you say, what is, if you were to redesign baseball in terms of the games and things like that, and the length and the speed, and what adjustments would you make? You've been made the czar of friggin' MLB, right? You surpassed the Bud Seligs and all these guys, commissioners. So you can make any change that you would think would be a quality change, bring more fans, and what change is, what would you make if it were up to you?
So I think a couple of things. Number one, I think baseball as a whole has a macro issue, I think baseball personally took a big step backwards a couple of years ago when Major League Baseball took over minor league baseball. And I know you and I have had a lot of talks. I'm a huge fan of minor league baseball.
Me too. Now I love it. It's great.
Yeah, I know you do, because you're your stuffed smiley guy. But
no. Even before that, I mean, I've always, whenever the Pawtucket Red Sox were on Nesson, I'd watch them. I'm a baseball purist. I don't care if there's no major league game scheduled. Years ago, like used to be like Thursday night, there were no baseball games, and Monday night there were no baseball games. I would listen to whatever was on just to listen to a game. So I'm not I'm not falling on the sword for the Woo Sox. I haven't even been to a game yet in Worcester. So
I thought that's sacrilegious for you. But
hey,
but like I was saying, I think Major League Baseball took a huge step back because honestly, one thing minor league baseball does is it always brought it cultivated fans from a young age. Right. And if you're in Burlington, Vermont, or you're in Missoula, Montana, or if you're in even Lowell, Massachusetts, it gives you the exposure early off. And the other thing too about minor league baseball, and as you know from going to games, whether it's in Pawtucket or Louisville or Fort Wayne, it is you get to touch the players, because you get to see them. Right. I mean, when I went to Binghamton a couple of weeks ago, I sat on the third baseline, like front row center, and there were kids going up there and they're high-fiving the players, they're getting autographs, they're hugging the players, they're taking selfies with the players, and those memories are going to live on, and that's what's going to create the next generation of baseball fan, because they're going to look back at those fond memories. And if you're in Binghamton, New York, the closest team I think to you is probably the Mets. Maybe it might actually. I'm trying to think what the closest one is. It could be one of the Ohio teams, but that's the game you're going to go to.
Right, and I like that, because when all these young guys that actually sign these baseballs and T-shirts, a lot of them don't make it to the pros. We know that, but if they do, that fan base that they had in the minor leagues is gone. Now they're major leaguers, and they're public enemy number one when they stink, and they're just people call in and talk about them on sports radio, saying, "Oh, that Mookie, oh that person." Yeah, so I guess these younger guys, but it's also they're trying to promote themselves, right? By being in touch with the fans and things like that. But the rules change when you get to the MLB. But anyway.
Right. Well, you also have to remember too, we're a little spoiled being in the Northeast. We're spoiled because we're close to Boston. New York's a 3.5-hour drive. Mm-hmm. You can go to both the New York teams. You can go to Toronto if you want to. Baltimore, Washington. They're all within a couple hours to 4, 5, 6 hours. But you got to remember, there are parts of America where there just aren't many options. When Major League Baseball took over minor league baseball, they completely got rid of the Appalachian League, which is through West Virginia, and kind of that along the Appalachian Mountains. And they turned into a college wood bat summer league. So you went from having, 60 games, so 30 home games, to now having 30 home games with college kids, which is not the same. Now, you and I love Summerwood Bat League. We've talked about it, but it's not the same as saying that's your professional team. You may as well go watch the local Legion team play.
Yeah. God help us.
But I think that was a big step back for baseball, because baseball had an opportunity to kind of cultivate those families and those, some people who might not have the resources to go to Fenway Park, because as you and I always talk about, Fenway Park is so freaking expensive.
It's ridiculous.
You can't do it. You just can't.
It's like planning a vacation. You can only go so many times a year unless you are really one of those affluent Bostonites, Bostonians rather, that really can afford the season ticket, can afford to take, little, Cindy and Tommy and Muffy, the dog, to the game. You all pile into the Beamer and off you go,
Right.
Yeah, it's become so out of touch, even for, just it's not a blue collar game anymore.
No, it's not. And it's not affordable. But, you go to the Binghamton Rumble Ponies and you chalk out $12 and you can sit like literally inches away from a player and talk to them throughout the game. You can touch the grass you can reach for a foul ball down the line. for $12, and the food and concessions are relatively cheap. So I think that's where Major League Baseball and my Rob Manfred thing is. I have a rant about him, but that was a big swing and a miss, no pun intended on that.
Yeah.
But you look at you look at his other things he's done is to try to speed up the game, because the other problem with the game is just the length. And when you couple that with and to go back to your question about, what to do to fix it, if I could just unilaterally make changes in the league, the first thing I do is get rid of the shift, because it's that lack of action is where you really notice how long the game is. Like I do like 9 innings. I have my set routine. I go there. I sit there for the first 3 innings. Then I go get food around the 4th inning. Then I go and get ice cream. Of course, I'm drinking a couple beers in between. Beer runs every inning or so. But then I get my ice cream around the 7th inning. I check out the souvenir shop, and I come back to watch the last 2 innings.
I think if anybody follows you on Facebook, I think you're totally accurate.
Yes. But I have my system. But when you're sitting there watching a lack of action, when you're watching ball gets hit over the fence or strikeout, then 5 more strikeouts, like players don't care anymore if they strike out, because they're trying to hit home runs only. And what made the Sosa McGuire home run chase so iconic was it's something we had never seen before. We had never seen, since Cal Ripken broke Lou Gehrig's record, we had never seen, a chase at history. And now we know in retrospect that they put a little bit too much in there, put a little something extra in their Gatorade before game.
Yeah, that's the problem I had, and that's why I didn't follow it. I mean, I remember Mark McGuire's home run that year. Was it his 70th? And it was just like a low line drive in St. Louis that just kind of happened to go over barely went over the wall. It was not this monstrous 458 that Canseco was blasting out. So that's the reason why it's kind of like, for an old timer like me, I was kind of like, tainted baseball. But you're right. I mean, they even back then. And back then, it wasn't that long ago. We're not talking,
it seems like long ago now, though. I'll tell you what.
It does seem like a long time ago, but Major League Baseball knew when Jose Canseco put that book out and exposed everybody. I know he was a dirtbag and he was trying to make money, right?
Yep.
Because he was he was a typical guy that didn't know how to handle money, and he was sued a lot and this and that. He was in and out of jail and stuff like that. And not like he was like Derek Chauvin or whatever, but he was a party kind of guy, and he ended up with nothing. So when he put out that book, they said it would be a lot juicier if you named names. So he sold a lot of his buddies out. McGuire, one of them, for money.
I mean, I think that Balco book, when that came out, I remember I couldn't put it down. I went to I think I read it in like 24 hours. I ate that thing up like a fat person at a buffet.
What was that, Juiced? The book was Juiced?
Was it Juiced or was it Balco? There were 2 books. There was one by Canseco, and there was another one that covered the I forget the name of the book, but it was fast. The way they talk about the cream, it was more geared towards Barry Bonds. And Balco, which was the company that was providing the steroids. But it was just I couldn't stop reading it because it was so fascinating to watch how intricate cheating was. And the thing about baseball is a sport where there's cheating is tolerated to a certain level. Pitchers always put little shine on the ball. When I used to pitch, I used to put a little bit of crap on the ball. I mean, baseball cheats. Whether you're corking your bats or putting a little, rosin with sunscreen on the ball, but it's when you really, you ruin. You're doing the steroids and you're changing the field, because not like anybody can just put a little bit of spin on the ball. Now it's you're juiced. And I think that changed baseball. So that's another thing I would do to fix baseball is just, really start banning the steroid users. But I would say the shift is the big one as far as getting rid of it. And honestly, the other thing too is getting, I mean, the black population in baseball is only 18.7% of players in Major League Baseball. If you combine that, I'm sorry, it was 18.7% in 1981. Today it's 7%.
Wow, really? So what's it mostly today? Is it Latino,
Latin,
Dominican?
Yeah, Hispanic, Latin, Caribbean. But you're losing a big population because you look at the NFL, 58.9% are black, and in the NBA, it's 74.9, almost 3/4 of the league. Mm-hmm. So you look at you're not getting the young African Americans going professional anymore, and probably because they're not playing at the lower levels anymore. So how do you attract it? And it goes back to the idea of really cultivating a fan base young. If you're a poor black kid growing up in Lowell and the Spinners are your only, exposure to baseball, you're not going to go to Fenway Park. You're not going to have interest. Maybe you'll play basketball or maybe you'll play football. So I think that is another kind of big reason I think baseball's kind of backswing.
Yeah, lost its demographics. And it has. I mean, America's kind of changed too. But I see, I think about, the Boston Celtics. I mean, back in the 80s, I mean, they were pretty much an all-white team, and that's just the way it was. I mean, you had Dennis Johnson, you had Larry Parrish, but predominantly, you had these white guys in the silly little sissy shorts compared to what they're wearing today.
Kevin McHale shorts, a look I cannot pull off, by the way. Yeah. As much as I've tried to pull that look off.
I know, huh? And basketball has become a black or brown sport, which is that's what people are gravitating to. I think, but the bottom line is they're all if you think of your Target or a Walmart, right, you're trying to compete and get customers, right? And NBA, MLB, NFL, they're no different than Walmart or Target or whatever. They need a fan base. They need customers, right? Customers buy things. They just don't watch games. They buy apparel. They buy, the T-shirt with your name on it. They buy stuff because of statistics. But baseball, you're right. I mean, I've watched it over the years, and I think, for me, I think we shouldn't sign. One thing would be the expectation now is for a pitcher like Chris Sale to come in and pitch 5 2/3 inning and think that his flipping job, that's it. But we're paying this guy so many millions of dollars a year to come in and pitch 5.5 innings, and then you bring in this reliever and then the middle reliever. And, growing up, the guys I watched pitching, they went like a full 7+ innings. That was the standard, and it wasn't all this, let's bring him in and, let's pull him at this, but they didn't have that much of a pitch count. It's everything. I think statistics had a big thing to do with a lot of, particularly in baseball, with the statistics. But I mean, what I would change is that, no, I'm paying you to come in and pitch 6 to 7 innings. Can you do that? Otherwise, I'm not going to sign you to a 3 to 5 year deal. I'm not going to have some guy come out of the bullpen to save your ass. I'm paying you premium dollars to be a premium pitcher. Can you do it? And I think that makes for a better game. I mean, back in the day when Roger Clemens was pitching for the Red Sox, on a Friday night against the Yankees, and they weren't pulling him in the 5th inning unless he was getting shelled. But, or when Pedro pitched, or, these guys were just lights out. They were an automatic W. They were right. An automatic W in the win column, baby. That was it. That's changed too. Just the whole too many players, too much specialty, too much righty versus lefty, which I'm glad they got rid of. That's the way I would clean it up, and maybe just go back to pure basics. That you're a pitcher, you're a starting pitcher, and I expect on my team, I expect my pitchers to go 6-7 innings.
Right. Well, again, pitchers have become so valuable. I mean, you look at them. If you want to talk about the most overvalued position in professional sports, it's a starting left-handed pitcher.
Yep.
I mean, if you're a starting left-handed pitcher, you're basically guaranteeing yourself a $25 million contract just for being able to throw 4 or 5 innings. And I mean, again, you're a Red Sox fan. I'm a Blue Jays fan. You have Roger Clemens. I have Roy Halladay.
Well, you had Roger Clemens
very briefly, and it was
until he found out that he had to pay two taxes.
Well, if you remember, he got confused because he left Boston because he wanted to be close to his home in Texas, and he ended up in Toronto. So it took a little. He might have failed. The Texas public schools probably failed him in geography on that.
Oh yeah, someone sold him a really bad compass.
Yes, we're pointing the wrong direction. But Halladay would pitch deep into games.
Yeah,
he would pitch 7, 8, 9 innings.
Yep.
I mean, 7 innings would be on his low side, and what he would do was he would get ahead. The Blue Jays would get up, and he would throw strikes, and he would pitch to contact. It's something that's unheard of today, because the way, and you see it, at the college game and at the high level AAU game, is that everybody wants these power pitchers who are throwing the ball in the high 90s, low hundreds, where they have no idea where the ball is going. And I've been a big advocate for the last number of years to lower the mound. Actually, the Atlantic League this year, where I saw 2 games, one in Lancaster and one in York. They actually pushed the mound back 2 inches.
I agree with that. I do not know why. I forget what year it was, in the 60s, or that they raised the mound up, and so you've got this 6'5" pitcher, and then he steps on this mound that's up 14 inches or whatever it is, and he's looking down at the hitter. I never got that.
It's such an advantage, and especially now that you have power arms. I mean, people talked about like Walter Johnson back in the day as being this like lightning arm. Of course, they didn't have radar guns back then. They did bring some old early police radar guns to the games to try to measure his speed. But realistically, he was probably pitching in the low 90s when he was pitching, and he was known to be lights out, just feared.
Right.
You had Sandy Koufax and Satchel Paige, who are hard throwers, but it's something that's unheard of. Nowadays. I mean, you don't see many Mark Burleys who are pitching in the mid 80s, picking up the corners, because nobody wants that. People want these lightning arms, and the problem with lightning arms blow out pretty easily because there's so much stress on the arm.
Yeah.
But lowering the mound, I think, would go a long way for raising batting averages, which is one of the struggles. I mean, you look at what the batting averages are across the league. I mean, how many no-hitters we have this year? I mean, we're gonna easily eclipse the record for no-hitters in a single season, and we're not even halfway through we're barely halfway through the season. So there's a problem, and the problem is that it's too much of a pitcher/home run hitting league, and Major League Baseball said, well, we're going to deaden the ball, which then brings up the question, well, what the hell were you doing with the ball before? Were you playing with a fucking super ball out there?
Yeah, exactly. Remember, before they found out it was steroids, they were saying the ball was juiced,
Right.
But they found out the guy hitting the ball was juiced.
Well, remember that old saying, chicks dig the long ball? They took that to heart. I mean, home runs used to sell tickets because home runs were cool. Now home runs are so garden variety that you have guys who are utility fielders like Brock Holtz hitting home runs, and it's just casual now.
Right.
The home run hitter used to be that. He used to be that guy in your 3, 4, 5. Boom, those 3 guys would hit home runs. It was everybody else's job to just get on base
base and have the 3, 4, 5 guys knock them in.
Right, then the 7, 8, 9 guys were just there to flip the lineup to get back to those leadoff guys. So those leadoff guys could get on base with home run guys. Now everybody's a home run hitter, and it's just taken the fun because there's less going on. And one of the games, and you go to these games now, and they're 4 hours, and you're just watching. Basically, you're just watching batting practice. Pitcher throws the ball while the batter takes it, or the batter hits a home run, or the batter strikes out.
Right.
I mean, it's just not. It's not a compelling product, and the pitchers work so freaking slow. I mean, I think I don't want to sound like our good friend Felger, but you do the David Price impression where he's standing on the mound playing with his jersey, taking a full minute in between pitches.
Oh.
I mean, if you go back to any of those like 1970 playoff games, or 80s, watching the pitchers work, they were quick.
Oh my God, dude! I was just watching one from the 90s. I forget what game I was watching from the 90s on YouTube, and I swear to God, man, that was my first observation, or my first pickup was, wow, look at how fast this dude he gets the ball back from the catcher. He looks around and he winds and he works,
Right.
And the ball players also, isn't sporting, $9,000 worth of gold chains around his neck. He's not doing the Nomar Garcia power. I have to do the gloves and go do all the superstitious bullshit, and stepping out of the batter's box after every pitch and readjusting your gloves. And I get that. I like that if there's like, maybe if the bases are loaded, there's 2 down, there's 2 on, and it's the bottom of the ninth. I like the foreplay, the anticipation, but to do it all the time,
everybody loves a little foreplay there, Ken.
Huh?
I said everybody loves a little foreplay.
Yeah, of course. But you know what? There's a moment for all of this stuff,
Right.
You're supposed to, as a pitcher, back in the day, they taught pitchers to work fast and throw friggin' strikes.
Right.
Very simple.
Well, Ken, like you said, the Nomar thing, I mean, Nomar stuck out so much because it was such an abnormality back then, where he would step out and screw around with his gloves. Even when he didn't swing at the ball, he'd step out and screw around with his gloves. But that was the exception to the rule. Nowadays, everybody steps out. You take a pitch, you step out. Their catchers are mixing it. There's too many signs. And one thing I think Major League Baseball did good is they've limited the number of mound visits. Because if you remember a couple of years ago, Christian Vasquez used to go out to the mound after every couple pitches.
Yeah, I know.
And it was laboring watching him go out there. And now they've limited the number of times that you can visit the mound before you have to change.
Exactly. And if I'm in center field, come on, if I'm in center field, wait, come on, man. I mean, what is this? I mean,
right. And the thing is, like, you can only keep a buzz so long. I mean, you can't go out. I mean, you could, but you can't really go out there and drink for 4 hours and watch a baseball game. I mean, they cut you off in the 7th inning, so you still got 2 more innings. I think eventually Major League Baseball will go to 7 innings. It's not going to happen probably for another 10 years, but it will be one hell of a fight with the union, where it's going to be a civil war, and Major League Baseball is going to neuter forever the players' union, but they're going to get the games down to 7 innings.
I actually agree with you, and I think to be in today's day and age where everything is, because of the internet, we want instant, information. Google says, hey, we found this search in a bazillionth of a second for you. We found all these things. That's the age that's growing up right now. And I think maybe if you want, you have to adjust. And for some of us purists, we're not going to be around forever, and there's been a lot of changes to baseball back, whether it's been free agency, whether it's been raising the mound, whether it's been, making it 60 feet, 6 inches. I said 60 feet, 60 feet, 6 inches.
Yep.
All those adjustments they probably balked at back in the day, and people settle in, and
Well, the one thing that will probably, besides the fact that the players' union will fight at the end of time, because if you're playing 7-inning games, you're not going to get the same amount of money. But the other thing that's really going to slow this process down about quickening, sending from 9 to 7, is the fact that out of all the professional sports, the only one that has records that matter is baseball. It's like the Hall of Fame is the only actual Hall of Fame that's worthwhile. Like, Canton's cool. The Basketball Hall of Fame is kind of a joke. The National Hockey League Hall of Fame's in Toronto, so screw it. It's in a different country. We don't care about it. But, 90-year-old men and 12-year-old boys get chills when they walk the halls of Cooperstown. And it's the one sport where records and the Hall of Fame mean something. And if you go from 9 to 7 innings, you are basically forever changing. You're basically forever changing the record books.
Yeah, and that, I'll tell you what, I don't want to see that, but if it's survival of the sport and to get more people interested, not just because and maybe it will, and you don't want to create a casual fan base. Oh, come on, it's only 7 innings. We'll be in and out of there, and because you could take a 7-inning game and essentially turn it into, a 9-inning game just because there's no clock,
Right. You can have a 9. You can have a hell. I've done some really bad Babe Ruth games that have gone like 3.5 hours. But you can ask anyone I've had dinner plans with that I've tried to say, well, the game starts at 6, so I may be home at 10.
Right.
You can get some really bad 7-inning games, but you can also have some 9-inning games that cruise. I did a 10-inning game. It was an exhibition showcase where it was just tick over 2 hours for 10 innings.
Right. There you
so
go.
You can, but you need the swings, you need the hits, you need the strikes.
Right. You need quick innings. You need 3 up, 3 down, 3 up, 3 down, and whoever gets the most hits wins, and or the most runs actually wins. So, but yeah. So all right, man. Listen. So next time, guys, thanks for tuning in. I know a lot of people will get this on the reclick. We're coming up pretty close to the 8 o'clock hour. And so Peter K, we don't have a solution, but we'll see. I think, this is not just about baseball. If people are tuning in, this is about, America. It's a big business. And it's obviously too a part of American culture that we want to see keep thriving. But again, people are saying the games are too long, this and that, and so Peter and I are just kind of outlining some things that some pros and cons. I hope people will re-click on this, which they always do, and leave their comments below. So, any closing remarks, Mr. Cush?
I go back to a field of dreams, as cliche as it is, and if you ever want to see you ever want to get chills, you listen to it, where they talk about baseball and James Earl Jones. American history has been erased over and over like a blackboard on a chalk, the chalkboard. But the one constant is baseball. Baseball is part of our history.
That's very true.
There are some great sports movies, but at the end of the day, the ones that give you the chills are when Robert Redford hits that walk-off home run in the natural, when all the lights are blowing up. That's what every kid wants to be when he's growing up. And
that's awesome.
we need to get back to that, and we need to make baseball great again.
I you know what? I totally agree with you, and that's a great way to leave it, man. And I love baseball, my number one. And all right, kids. Speaking of kids, all right, Peter, thanks for being on, brother.
All right, have a good one, my friend. I'll see you tomorrow.
You got it. Take care.
Bye.
Take care, guys. Thanks for tuning in.
Casey saw all the games, knew the players by their
We'll see you next
first names.
time.
Told the umpire he was wrong all along.